Hi there and welcome back to Japan, where we're going to be doing our reaction and review to the new KYARY PAMYU PAMYU song. Although, you guys probably noticed if you've been on this channel for a little while, so you know how this works by now, because we had to restart the channel recently, and so with our new format, you'll realise that I'm actually about to give you the review. I just did the reaction. If you want to see the reaction, click the link in the description below. It'll take you to a separate player. I'm really sorry that we have to do that these days, but that's just what we have to do. So, if you haven't already seen my reaction, go click the link in the description below, see my reaction now. Have you seen the reaction? Do you even want to see the reaction? Did you want me to get straight on with the review? I'm going to start the review in a second. Here we go. It's review time. Okay. Yeah, so like I said at the beginning of the reaction before I did it, you guys know that I'm someone who's been following her music for quite a while. I really enjoy it. I think it really does add something fun to the music industry. And I think that is a mixture of the style that she innately obviously has. She brings this very, very fun sense of how she does things, which she had, sort of brought before. Sort of started doing before she became famous. So there's something very real about her sense of crazy. And at the same time, she's working with a producer who has already proven to be very good at doing catchy stuff and all of this stuff with Perfume as well as with her. These are two people who are really good at encapsulating a sort of crazy sense of fun and, detail. It's all about detail. She's obviously loves the sort of stylistic visual details, and he loves audio detail and putting lots of things in there. Now, lots of things into the mix, into the production. I've heard people sort of referring to the music that often you hear from people like KYARY and from Perfume as being overly simplistic. And in some cases that can be true. I do think that overall this is a discussion though where this type of music, it's usually, if you imagine a Venn diagram, this is usually only really for people who are into pop. And the reason I say that is because there are so many details and sounds in this music that a lot of rock fans maybe don't get. And I think this is one of the things I want to mention for this song, which I think is really spot on. Now, when I'm listening to sort of rock music, and when a lot of people are listening to rock music, you're listening for things about the way that the notes are played, the sort of the details of how it's being played, and the details of like little twiddles and things they put in, extra notes that the musicians put in, flourishes, things like that. In something like this, especially with the producer, whose name I always get it wrong, is Nakata, isn't it? Nakata Yasutaka, I'm pretty sure it's that. He always puts these details in, but he always does it in a sort of, it's synthetic, it's programmed music. I doubt much of it's really played on keyboard. I think it's a case of click and drop the notes on a screen, that style of production. That's certainly what it sounds like. So I can imagine for people who are more into instrumental music, live music, they might not hear the detail in this because a lot of it is so well regimented, so well constructed on that sort of computer beat that you kind of don't always hear it unless you really sort of listen to hear that the sounds, if you like, they build up, they sort of layer on top of each other and create this bigger whole. Just to give you a quick example, sorry, I know I might be belaboring this point before I get into talking about the song itself, but I do think it's important when we're talking to, we've got a really good wide range of fans following this channel. I think one of the main things is if you imagine with like pop music, when you got it programmed, that means that any beat, any note from any instrument being played on a beat, they all happen at exactly the same time. Whereas in rock or in something like jazz, or where there's actual musicians involved, a lot of the time what you'll have is everyone's playing on the same beat, but there would just be a slight thousandth of a second here or there, which will basically mean that it sounds a little bit different. You can kind of pick the notes apart more. So when you're trying to pick apart pop, you really need to be listening more for the tone rather than how it's played, the individual tones. And that is actually where, as a producer, Nakata comes to the fore. He's very good at picking the tones that he uses, and that's one of the areas that I really like about this. The kick drum's really nice. It's sort of, as I said, it cements and cuts through everything, and when you're in the chorus because it kind of gets a real head boppy vibe to it, and really sounds quite cemented. But all of the other sounds, there's so many things going on. I was trying to pick them out as we were doing the reaction without talking too much over the song. But there was everything from the synthesizers doing slightly more ethnic Japanese or Chinese style instruments, slight plays on those, along with saw synths. You had little telephone sounds going on. You had, I can't even remember all of the sounds now. There were so many of them going on. There was little vocal loops, little lines of vocal sound that were just being sort of repeated at certain points. It was full of things that I think to a casual listener you could miss. And yeah, I think this is a feast for the ears. I think if you are genuinely someone who's into production, into songwriting, into arrangement, you could listen to this and find new things, quite a few times over. I think you could at least get 2 or 3 listens out of this. And you guys know that I've always been a great sayer, that I don't think, there's some people who say you have to listen to songs 7 or 8 times or more to get the most out of it. And I don't think that's true. I think if a song requires that many listens, then something's wrong with the way it's written. It's nothing wrong with a song having longevity, but I think you should know what's going on after a good 2 or 3 listens of any song. And I think this is one of those ones, though, that would... it's got enough to give you those sort of 2 or 3 listens to pick apart new things as you go through. So on that sense, I think the production was wonderful. Yes, it is kind of what we've heard from him and from KYARY a lot of times before. And yet it's unique enough that it doesn't sound like a retread of any of her previous songs. And that's partly down to the fact that it has quite a unique just the way it's structured together. Again, actually, I'm not even sure if it's 100% unique. It's all in the details. The melody is in a similar sort of ilk to the ones we've heard from her before, but is identifiably different. It's got a chorus that is very much its own. The production, again, is similar to what we've heard from her before, and yet it does feel like this is not a retread. Her performance, as always, she sings in quite a relaxed and very personable sort of way, and that comes across fine as ever here. Her voice suits the song perfectly. There were some little notes I noticed. I think it was kind of in the pre-chorus where it went into that doing sort of stereotypical Asian melodies, really sort of stereotypical. If you ask someone what sort of melody would be an Asian melody, and you get your sort of typical da 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 sort of thing, it was using those sorts of like stereotype melodies. And they were nicely thrown in all amongst the song, which was kind of cute, because I like the way that with a lot of the music that he does, and with KYARY and also with Perfume as well, he likes to take sort of familiar melodic tropes and play around with them a little bit. So that was a nice little thing in there, gave it a little bit of character. And then obviously, as is always important, once again, with the stuff, he tends to work with people who do very visual things. Perfume are very known for their stage shows and all the visual lights effects. And KYARY is known for the sort of conceptual stuff. I really love the way that this came across visually. The video was nicely directed. It did seem that she was very much having a lot of fun in this. I noticed this video, although it was obviously very heavily choreographed, seemed to be much less dance reliant than a lot of the other videos that she's done. It seemed there was a lot more acting, and I think that was partly down to the fact that, as many of you know, in fact, I first found out about this through our Discord when it was pointed out to me, that KYARY was involved in doing like a sort of a kabuki crossover project, which was a really interesting thing, actually. And there was a real sense that this had sort of kabuki inspiration, and yet it didn't feel like, again, like using those little sort of stereotypical East Asian melodies. It didn't feel like some cheap play. It felt like they were actually sort of taking these little ideas and putting them into the song in a way that actually, and into the video in a way that actually works. And like I say, the video definitely felt kabuki inspired, and yet it didn't feel like a kabuki ripoff. It didn't feel like it was just overly playing to stereotypes. It felt like they'd just taken some nice ideas and put it into the, if you like, the KYARY style of doing things. So overall, yeah, this is not going to win over anyone who wasn't already a fan. That's pretty obvious. If you weren't already a fan of hers, then this is not going to win you over. If you were already a fan of hers, then I think this is, it's not going to test the boundaries, not test your taste. It's not going to push you in any direction that you weren't expecting. And yet I think it's just going to add something nice to the catalogue. It's just going to be a new taste of something that you already expected. And I'm going to repeat one thing, because like I say, maybe I'm overplaying the sort of comparison between pop fans and rock fans here, but I do notice, and this is one of the things I love about this channel, like I always say, is the conversation. We have people from so many different musical tastes and backgrounds here that I do think it's relevant to point this out. A lot of people say when they hear these sorts of songs, oh, just more of the same. Yeah, if they're kind of usually rock-centric fans, oh, just more of the same, more of the same, more of the same. I do think it's important to remember that this is probably, if you've got someone who isn't into rock, I mean, luckily, I'm lucky to be into both of them. If you've got someone who isn't into rock, this is how they feel when they hear guitar bands where every single song is bass guitar, drums, singing. That's the same way they feel, just, oh, more of the same, all the songs are the same. It is an interesting comparison that. So I do, like I said, I do totally understand that if you're not into pop, if these sorts of tone styles of writing, these sounds are not naturally your thing, then this is not going to seem like anything new to you. I do think if you're into pop, and especially if you're into J-pop or this producer, then easier than repeating his name, then you will, I think, like I say, you will get something from this. I mean, all music is different, unless it's the Oasis discography. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me on this video, and I really appreciate you sticking all the way through to the end. I just want to say a big thank you if you have been getting into our comments, if you've been liking, subscribing, if you've been joining in the discussions on this or any of the videos, even if this is the first of our videos that you've seen. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you doing that. As always, a massive thank you to our Patreon people who help just keep everything on this channel looking so nice. Big thank you to you guys, and links for the Patreon, as well as our Discord, Reddit, good place to suggest songs, Facebook, Twitter, that's all in the description below as well, where the reaction link was. So just want to say thank you, like I say again, for making it through to the end of the video, and until I see you soon, for now, from Japan, ciao ciao.